Hello everybody, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. And in this video, I'm finally coming back out with the spawn videos. I'm going to be talking about the beginner and the treasure spawn in a different video. The previous one crashed, and personally I think coming out with both would be really hurtful, efficiently, energy wise. So coming out with just them splits, and because some people may only want to know about one, would be a lot more efficient, so I'm going to be doing that instead. And here I am, and I'm going to be talking about the obvious one first, the new treasure spawn that came out, because this one's going to be the most expensive, so you need to know whether you should spend your gems or not on this. Okay, so first of all, let's start this off, but this is going to be a treasure spawn. So because this is going to be a treasure spawn, right, you want to be careful. Treasure spawns are pay to win spawns. They are spawns where you're gonna be eventually guaranteed what you want, but you're gonna have to spend a lot of gems in rapid spawning, just continuous spawning. Complete continuous spawning before you can actually get the stuff. And I'm not talking about oh, it's going to be 100 gems, it's going to be 200 gems. No, if you want some of the gear, maybe like 100 or 200 gems. But if you want the monster, it's probably going to be, especially with looking at like the jackpot and everything surrounding it, right? It's probably going to be 600 bare minimum. If you get like crazy amounts of lucky, it's going to be 600 bare minimum. It's probably actually going to be 900 to 1200 before you even get the monster. And yes, I literally mean 900 to 1200 for one monster. Considering if you're free to play and getting gems is already hard enough, that's legitimately the actual amount around what you want to get. So keep in mind, these spawns are expensive, and I'll talk about that in more detail later, but let's actually go over the monster. Okay, so with this monster right here, we got Demonic Eye Sharelet, and the Light 40 cost is back out. It just came out this morning. I was farming it. They had Mobius right after. I had to skip Mobius so that way I can come out with these videos and stuff like that. But anyways, moving on from there, let's get into this monster, man. Okay, so it's going to target all enemies. It's going to be ability power of 160. It's going to have a success rate of 100. That means it's going to hit 100% of the time. And then it's going to hit 4 times for magic damage dark. The ability power is going to be boosted by 10 for each increase in skill level. It's going to target all enemies. It's going to remove buffs. And then it's going to target all allies. It's going to apply a Kismet. So, okay, so right here, I want to get this cleared up. I watched Timely's video about Sharelets, and he sounded like he was tired as heck because he didn't get this part right here. Right, this is going to remove buffs from all enemies, and then it's going to apply Kismet to all allies. It's not going to do both for like all allies, perhaps say. So it's going to make sense. It's absolutely going to make sense. What it's doing is, let's say the enemies have like even just a 10% buff. It's going to remove that, and if your team has debuffs, it's going to flip those debuffs into buffs. It's not removing buffs for your team, it's removing buffs for the enemies. So it's absolutely going to make sense. So that's how that's going to play out. It's going to really even the field. It's kind of like Initial Force, if you know about that move for the mage. It's over here. I think I misspelled it wrong, so I'm just going to try to find it. Internal Force removes buffs, debuffs from all allies, and removes buffs from all enemies. But instead of just removing them, Kismet actually flips the debuffs into buffs, so that's even better. So it's like Initial Force, but even better than that. Okay, so moving on from there, heals 20% of max HP every 5 seconds for 60 seconds. This is a continuous heal, so it's not going to heal right away, but each and every 5 seconds for 60 seconds is going to heal 20% of your HP, so it's a continuous heal. 30% elevation for 60 seconds is going to help with proc rates in your main slot. Increase Unison gauge gains by 2 for 60 seconds. Increase Unison gauge gains. Unison gauge makes the world go around. If you got gains for that, it's going to be even more efficient. It's going to be more helpful. This one's also going to apply Hero to yourself. Hero is a really nice buff. Hero is like the god of all, like it's Kinjian and Blessing successor. The only issue with Hero is it's got a 70% healing reduction, so it's really going to hurt under certain circumstances and situations. It's not going to completely hurt all the time. Most of the time, it's actually going to be very beneficial, especially if you're dealing with a lot of enemies that have continuous like status element. They just cast status elements a lot and debuffs a lot. The Hero is definitely going to help out for sure, but sometimes Hero could also hurt because of the healing effects received. I know if you have a strong cleric, sometimes it's not going to matter, but sometimes, especially during the 40 costs, they have like certain effects that really limit what the actual cleric can do, so it's going to hurt for those. But anyways, moving on from there, it's going to cast Dark Elements to all the allied field for 120 seconds. Dark Element's going to be like that field buff, not debuff. So it's going to appear like on the top screen, kind of like the League button right here. It's going to appear on the top screen. what it's going to do is there's like a great spirit ability power increase, and then there's like some attack and I don't even know. It's not going to affect us because I actually read some of the stuff, and some of the stuff just isn't there, to be fairly honest. But like the stuff that's there, what's going to happen is attack and defense is going to be increased by 40% with this buff, and then it's going to give dark element increase by 4. So okay, so with this monster is going to be orientated around player versus enemy, for sure. Player versus enemy. Coliseum, it can be useful as well. When you come to Coliseum, good monsters are monsters that can not negate, but at least like give high resistance to damage when you're doing Unison. Monsters that remove like damage reflection, damage reduction, continuous healing effects. Specifically speaking, Odin and Brahma are the best choice for that, because they do like all types of that. They remove all the nullifying effects and everything surrounding that. So Brahma and Odin are the best choice for that. The next best things are high damaging monsters, and then the next best things, well, these are not in order, so these could be in any order. I'm just saying what is really good for Coliseum. Monsters that cast Prohibit Unison, because yeah, that's right, if you manage to cast a monster that casts Prohibit Unison, and you go first, and you prohibit the whole enemy team, even though they all cast monsters, they can't do jack squat now. So that's why I'm saying Prohibit Unison is also going to be very, very helpful. So because this monster does pretty good damage, and yes, ability power of 160 4 times is pretty good damage. It's not going to be like the best damage in the game for a Unison monster, but for sure it's going to leave a couple of scratches, it's going to leave a couple marks. And if you're fighting a really weak team, like let's say you're fighting a really low or mid A rank guild, if you pop a monster like this, most of the time it could actually probably one-shot the team. So, but when you're fighting higher people, it's only going to leave a few scratches and marks for sure. At least at my level, that's what's going to happen for sure. So it's going to be great for Coliseums because of its damage, and of course it's got like the internal force going, and it's got hero just in case you survive. It's got that dark elephant, the element field, and it's just extra stuff, to be very honest. The main thing that's really going to help out for sure is the damage, and probably the initial force or eternal force is probably going to be the most clutch, and the continuous healing for sure. But everything else surrounding it, it's going to be player versus enemy, because all these effects are going to be player versus enemy. This is not going to be really good for guild battles either, unless like there's certain strategies you may be able to use for guild battles for this monster due to its hero casting. Like if you have a hero strategy, maybe. There was one time, Zero, back when they actually had like Hydros, like the real Hydros, the real Ben Hio and stuff like that, right before Terminator quit the game, they were using a hero strategy, and it worked out really well. The Hero Madia strategy, before everybody else found out, they used it, and it worked really well for them. So that was one occasion where hero strategy was actually used, is during that time. And you can find it too. It's somewhere in Smexy Van's videos. It's like Zero versus Puff Puffs. You'll find it. It was like, I think 3 tournaments ago or 4 tournaments ago, something like that. But anyways, moving on from there, yeah, most of this is going to be player versus enemy orientated. Wait, player versus enemy monster. Okay, so with guild raids and the star 40 cost, or not star, but light 40 cost are back out. So what would they be useful for those? Absolutely. In fact, for this monster, most of the time you're actually going to be like, this monster would be specifically great for, let's say, guild raids. But the ironic part about this monster is, if you want really like that field buff for any circumstance or any situation, Aerial just takes the cake. Just Aerial Archangel. If you have an Aerial Archangel, it works for like all monsters, not all monsters, but all elements. So honestly, if you got Aerial, you're good for guild raids. You don't need this. And if you have Masune the Dark Commander, you're good for both the light 40 cost and the guild raids. So it's kind of funny, and Aerial's even a better choice for guild raids, because you will be eventually fighting random enemies with random elements, and Aerial's just got you covered for all elements. So honestly, Aerial is a better choice than this monster. This monster is 37 cost, so it is the highest cost, and it's great for guild battle score. Obviously, you probably don't want to throw this for guild battles unless you like talked about it with your team, and it's going to be part of the strategy, because it's not just like a downright helpful monster for guild battles. It's really not. It's only strategy orientated, whether you should use this monster or not, or if you want to do it for battle score, perhaps say. because it may be one of the only 37s you have. You can do that, but that's pretty much where that's going to serve you. And as for the 40 cost, this is going to be very helpful. People will be looking for the field buff. It doesn't matter which monster you use. In fact, Liatsu would probably be the best because you're going to need DPS. DPS is going to be what you really want to be highly orientated around the most part, because a lot of light 40 cost monsters are going to be tanky. So having a star buff, considering that it gives attack and magic attack by 40%, is actually going to be better field buff. The monster itself, Liatsu, is probably like, she doesn't give like really good abilities around that surrounding scenario and situation, but the field buff she gives is it's gonna be better than the dark element for sure. But anyways, dark element, you could use the dark commander or this one. The dark commander is absolutely not dead. With the dark commander, she's gonna recover 20 costs, and when you get to that light dragon, getting costs back is good. And she casts life drain as well, which is gonna make it easier for the cleric, and the cleric can save more costs. So when the cleric needs to heal more, absolutely can. Now this monster does increase use and gouge gains. There's not a lot of monsters that increase use and gouge gains. Only Owenheim, only Repti, and only this monster. So definitely, there's a lot of monsters that recover costs. So that's one flip side compared to Misune. But there's not a lot of monsters that increase use and gouge gains. And here will make it harder for the cleric, but at the same time, there's a lot of status elements, and hero does increase stats by twice the amount in all stats. So they will be taking less damage. So hero's not all too bad. There will be some percentages. There's not a lot of percentages, but there will be some percentages that kind of go through it, especially with Nesha. Nesha's the worst of them all. But after you get to that half mark, usually I think, or that 75% mark or something like that with Nesha, I don't really know, to be fairly honest, because I don't really pay attention to her, because usually in Carnage we kill her super quick. But yeah, that hero is not going to hurt too much. Sometimes it may not be like the best choice to use hero, but for 60-70% of the mission, hero is not a bad choice. So definitely Masune's not dead. You can use this monster. This monster is an additional monster you can use for the dark element field. So that's covering the monster and everything surrounding it. Let me get to the gear. I know this is going to be a long video. I'm sorry, but I want to make this as detailed as possible. While I have the energy, let's do it. Okay, so with everything they have the exclusive skills, the class exclusive skills. So keep in mind, these are going to have lower proc rate. I think they're going to be like, I read somewhere, I might have read this wrong, or I might be not remembering right. It's going to be like a 7.5% chance for them to proc, and this is not in the main slot, by the way. So anyways, with these, do they have good abilities? They have lower proc rate than most skills, but do they have good abilities, AzureWrath? To answer that, they have good abilities, but they're not like great abilities. They're not something you should really just die for. Actually, for the most part, these are going to be great stat stickers, and the skill is going to be alright. It's going to be okay. It's not like the greatest skill. You shouldn't dive and go spend gems for it, but it's an okay skill. And yes, I'm talking about almost all of these skills right here. Well, specifically speaking, I'm going to be talking about the top three, because the bottom three, I'll talk about those in a second. Okay, so with the bow and the sword, we got the Pride's ability, Sniper's Pride, and Mind Eye's Pride right here. They ignore defense and magic defense, 50% of defense and magic defense. They do what a regular Testament XL will do, and obviously the 50% ignore defense and magic defense only works for that skill. So like, compare these to a seal, right? Compare these to a seal of, and if I could show you when I can, okay, right here, compare these to a seal of. Seal ofs will always be just multi-class, so it doesn't matter which class you use, they're going to be multi-class. So they're by default, and I already tested them, they're going to have higher proc rate. So compare these two. If you were to proc both of these, right, obviously the Mind's Eye Pride or the Sniper's Pride is going to do more damage, especially if you're fighting an enemy with really high defense and magic defense. It's going to do more damage by default, but this is going to do more DPS. And the reason this is going to be doing more DPS is because I think it's going to have like twice the proc rate, if not, and on top of it, it's going to be recovering 5 costs for each time. So it's a damaging buff ability or skill, and on top of it, it's recovering 5 costs, and on top of it, it's gonna have double the proc rate that Sniper's Pride and Mind Eye's Pride is gonna have. And because of that, it's just a better choice. It legitimately is a better choice. Though the other one may be doing more damage, you're gonna get more DPS off that, and that's how you're gonna be getting more DPS off that. This may not do as much damage, but for sure, like, getting 5 costs back and having high proc rate and doing damage for sure is gonna give you more DPS. So that's covering that. And then the Lancer right here, the Lance is going to have a bonus to break. Lancers don't have, in Treasure Hunters, a lot of exclusive skills. Both of them, they don't have much to really work with. I don't think any class does. Lancers usually are break orientated. They're either break or crit orientated. Now that they can do like crit damage, they have a crit set, or you could have a break set for Lancers to really do damage. And it's really, really awesome that they have the diversity that they have. And break actually is one of the highest, if you could get it to its maximum potential, which you do have to set it up for that, actually does the most damage out of every class. But it's only gonna be for player versus player, and you have to set it up for that. And because of that, the skill could be good, but for the most part, you mainly want to throw again, these skills are okay to just good. You don't need to go for these skills. Just having like Seal Loves is kind of like, okay, you could honestly just stick with your Seal Loves and just roll with it, or your like Testament double XLs and just roll with it. You don't need these skills. And then the prides right here, the Avengers and Amenities pride, pretty much do the same thing. 5% reduction HP, and then ability power gets boosted by 5. These right here, if you actually have Fatals, ironically, work for all classes, do the same thing, except you don't need to lose all that health. And this requires a lot of setup for it to actually do more than actually like the Testament double XLs would do. By default, if you have full health, or if you have near full health, right, regular Testament double XLs, like magical Testament double XLs, will actually do more. So you need to set it up, and then on top of it, you need to deal with the low proc rate. And because of that, like I said, these are okay abilities, but like they're nothing you should die for. So most of the time it's actually going to be for like elements, or it's going to be just for raw gear score. So that's pretty much that. And same for the reflections. The reflections, damage down is a better choice. Now that everybody has reflection reduction, they're either rocking reflection reduction, or they're rocking the Stellar God gears for the damage reduction that it has. So they're not going to be taking much damage back to themselves. I know it says that, but that's pretty much how it's going to go. Because they have reflection reduction, it reduces the reflection damage, and they're just pretty much going to be taking ones back to themselves. This can be helpful for some scenarios and situations, but they already have just regular reflections, and what regular reflections do is physical and magical in one. See, when you have these, you can put as many as you want on to help boost it a little bit. They don't stack, they don't fuse it to one big rate, but they kind of like add, they don't multiply, they add into a bigger rate. But they have like regular ones where it does 2 in 1, and you can only proc 2 of these at once. So that's pretty much how that's going to go, and because of that, these are also going to be good for stats. So anyways, that's the gear and everything surrounding it. So let's look into the spawn and see if it's going to be worth it. Okay, so with the spawn is going to be, they're not going to have any rates in the gear, and yes, the spawn 10 right here to actually obtain any of the gear, but you will be able to get a chest, and you will be able to get 50 to 200 medals per each spawn. So, and it's going to have the double chance. Double chance allows you to get 2 chests after first time, each time after first time half off, and after each jackpot, you're able to get 2 chests in one, and they only have medals within the jackpot, and that's by chance, because they're going to do the feature gear again. Instead of the side chest, they're going to have it in the jackpot, and then they're going to have the summoning scroll in there. And then these are all going to be rate orientated, because you could get 1-2 droplets of ether, 1 or 2 awakening orbs, and they do the same thing with the cost 27, cost 25 proficiency keys, and super XP quest keys. So they're all going to be rate orientated, and because of that, it's going to be a really, really expensive spawn. And honestly, like said, it has common abilities. Like this monster has hero. There's a lot of monsters that could cast hero out there. There's there's a decent amount of monsters that could cast the element needed to counter lights and just every other element. So this is not like a really exclusive monster. This is not a monster where if you miss it, you're going to absolutely lose. In fact, when it comes to ranked guild raids, you could absolutely use, if you have Liatsu and your Mitsunes, a couple of them, you could still get maybe even better score than a team that actually has this monster. So this monster is not something if you miss, you will lose out on just a limited time opportunity, or just a great opportunity for a monster. It's not that OP. And same for the gear itself. It's good for gear score, maybe infusions if you need it, but it's not something you really need to go for. Thankfully, it's only 2k, so if you manage to get 2 jackpots and get the medals off that, or perhaps you're unlucky and you keep getting 50 to 200, and you get 1 jackpot with like 1,300, you could get the you could probably get it. You're definitely could probably get the gear within at least 12 spawns, at least. It may only actually take around, it's actually going to be around ranging 2 to 12 spawns to actually get even 1 piece of gear. So if you want to do the math for that, you can. But it's not going to be as hard to get the gear. Sadly, like said, they're only going to have medals in the jackpot, so it's going to be very orientated around that. this is one of those spawns where it's going to be like Noah, the treasure spawn. If you ever done that, it's going to have really low rates to get to the jackpot, but when you get to the jackpot, it's going to have really high rates for stuff. And that's also going to be scary because they have the featured gear in here, so the featured gear might have boosted rates in here, and it's really going to suck if you manage to get no medals and you get the featured gear. But anyways, moving on from there, it's still going to be 10k medals. So like I said, it's going to be extremely expensive spawn to even spawn and get the monster and everything surrounding it. So that's my intake on the spawn. The spawn is not so, like, it's really expensive for the price it is, because you can absolutely, this is like something extra. Like, if you missed out on some of this gear, if you need some of the gear, you could grab it. That's what the spawn is pretty much telling you, because we got the light 40 cost and we got the light guild raid, and that's pretty much where it's going to be mainly orientated around, and also getting high gear score. Not exactly the best skills in the game, and the monster doesn't have like a really, the monster doesn't have an ability in the game where if you're gonna like not get it, you're gonna miss it. There are other abilities where you could work around the monster, because this monster has common abilities across all monsters. And in fact, if we're talking like element wise, not element wise, but just monster wise, without the element, there are better options out there and opportunities out there to use monsters for better things than this monster itself. So this monster, like I said, it's not like worth the price it is and everything surrounding it. But if you want it, it's there, and I pretty much talked about what it's good for and everything surrounding it. So thank you for tuning in, thank you for watching, and I hope this helped out. This is the AzureWrath, and I'll catch you in the next video. I'm out. Peace.